Welcome to This Explainer. I am so incredibly excited to have you here today because, honestly, we're going to completely change the way you look at the world around you. Usually when people hear the word economics, their eyes just kind of glaze over, right? They picture dry math, complicated charts, and boring textbooks. But that is missing the magic entirely. Economics isn't just numbers on a page. It's literally this invisible machine that dictates our everyday lives. Every single time you buy a cup of coffee, clock in for a shift at work, or even pay a tax, you are turning a gear in this massive, interconnected engine. So today, we're going to crack it open and see exactly how that machine works. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our itinerary for dissecting the machine. We'll start with the universal economic problem, look at capitalism versus command economies, explore the mixed economy solution, map out the two-sector circular flow, and finally, add the government into the mix. Let's get to it. Section 1. The universal economic problem. Now, every great story needs a villain, right? Well, in the story of economics, the ultimate bad guy is a concept called scarcity. It doesn't matter how unbelievably rich or technologically advanced a society gets, we all face this harsh reality. Human wants are basically unlimited, but the resources we have to satisfy them, like land, labor, and capital, are strictly limited. Because of this villain, every single human society is forced to answer three incredibly heavy logistical questions. Think about the weight of these. First, what to produce? Do we build new hospitals or do we build military tanks? Second, how to produce it? Do we hire a massive crew of manual workers or do we bring in modern machinery? And third, for whom do we produce? Who actually gets the final product? So how do we answer those? Well, the way a society chooses to tackle those three massive questions is what we call an economic system. You can think of an economic system simply as the framework, or the rulebook really, that a society establishes to fight off the villain of scarcity. It's the whole legal and institutional architecture that dictates exactly how all those heavy choices get made. Which brings us to Section 2, capitalism versus command. Historically, societies tend to lean heavily toward one of two extreme rulebooks. On one end of the spectrum, you have capitalism. This is your fast-paced, highly competitive, laissez-faire system. The means of production are entirely privately owned, and everything, and I mean everything, is driven by the profit motive. It's completely decentralized. But then, on the exact opposite side, we have the command economy. In a pure command system, there's no private property, none. Instead, you have collective ownership by the state, and all those big economic questions are answered through highly structured, centralized planning. The goal here is maximizing social welfare rather than chasing private profit. Let's objectively break down the capitalist rulebook. When it's driven by self-interest and the price mechanism, capitalism is amazingly flexible. It adapts rapidly, churns out a massive variety of new consumer goods, and optimally uses resources because everyone is desperately trying to innovate. But that same unguided machine has some pretty significant drawbacks. It naturally promotes massive gaps in income inequality. It can lead to severe labor exploitation. And crucially, it really struggles with negative externalities. That basically means if a company's only goal is maximum profit, they might make decisions that harm innocent bystanders, like a factory dumping waste into a local river just because it's cheaper than actually cleaning it up. Now, flipping over to the command economy rulebook, we see a completely different set of trade-offs. The main goal here is equality. By relying on centralized planning, a command system completely avoids wasteful, cutthroat competition. It aims for balanced growth everywhere and absolutely stops private monopolies from taking over. But in execution, it suffers heavily. Without an automatic price mechanism guiding things, figuring out where to put resources is a total nightmare. Because government bureaucrats are making literally all the decisions, the whole system gets bogged down in endless red tapeism. Imagine your absolute worst trip to the DMV, but applied to the entire national economy. Plus, there is a distinct lack of economic freedom for consumers and producers, and without financial incentives, growth can just crawl to a halt. Section 3, the mixed economy solution. So, the crucial point is, how does the real world actually work? Because pure capitalism and pure command are basically just theoretical extremes. Most modern societies eventually figured out they needed a compromise to keep the machine from breaking down. Enter the mixed economy. A mixed economy is an attempt to capture the best of both worlds. It combines that right to private property and the profit motive with necessary government intervention. The goal is to keep the dynamic, innovative freedom of capitalism while utilizing government planning to prevent exploitation and actually look out for the public's welfare. In this mixed setup, the public and private sectors coexist, and they have pretty well-defined roles. For instance, churning out consumer goods or running small businesses, that's usually left entirely to the private sector, guided by everyday prices. But industries of massive national importance, think national defense, heavy manufacturing, or the power grid, those are typically set up and run by the public sector. The government steps in to regulate the prices of absolute essentials, uses progressive taxes to safeguard against extreme wealth concentration, and uses economic planning to make sure development happens rapidly and smoothly. Section 4. The two-sector circular flow. Okay, so we've got the frameworks down. Now we're going to zoom right into the daily mechanical reality of this to see how money and resources physically circulate. Let's start with a really simplified, closed system featuring just two players: households and firms. To make this real, remember that you are the household. As a household, you sell your economic resources, mainly your time and your hard work. You sell that labor so you can turn around and buy the stuff you need to live. On the flip side, firms are the production units. They buy your labor, use it to make goods and services, and then sell those products right back to you. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how that constant exchange happens. Up at the top, you've got the product market. That's where goods and services are sold. Down at the bottom, you have the input or factor market, where labor and resources are traded. Households and firms constantly interact in both of these spaces, creating this perfectly closed, endless loop of exchange. Let's walk through this loop chronologically. It's actually pretty fascinating. Step 1. You, the household, supply your labor to the factor market. Step 2. Firms buy that labor and hand you an income. Let's say we measure this in beer, just as an example. Boom, now you've got money in your pocket. Step 3. You take that hard-earned income straight to the product market and spend it to buy groceries, clothes, maybe a new computer. Finally, step 4. The firms receive your spending as revenue, which they immediately use to hire more labor and keep the whole production line moving. What this ultimately shows us is a foundational rule of the economic machine. One person's expenditure is immediately another person's income. Section 5. Adding the government. Let's move to our final piece and see how this builds when we introduce a massive third player into this loop, a player with serious legal and political power, the government. Because in a mixed economy, it's never just households and firms. The government has to step in because, frankly, a pure two-sector market only cares about producing things that make a profit. The government is there to provide the essential public goods and social services that a totally free market would just flat out ignore. They have the ultimate authority to control, influence, and regulate both the households and the firms to keep the entire system from going off the rails. Now, what's really interesting about this is how the introduction of the government completely alters the flow. Look at how it sits right dead center in our model. It intercepts the flow of money and resources, and then injects its own money back into both the product and factor markets. It's not just a simple circle anymore. It's become this highly integrated, complex web. Let's break down how this three-sector machine actually operates. Step 1, the government collects taxes from both you and the firms. Taxes are essentially the fuel that powers this entire third sector. Step 2, armed with that tax revenue, the government suddenly becomes a massive buyer in the market. It buys goods from firms to build things like highways, and it hires labor directly from households to run its agencies. Step 3, the government acts as the great stabilizer. It distributes social services back out, provides income support to struggling households, and even hands out subsidies to key businesses to encourage steady production. So, we've covered the grand problem of scarcity, the extreme systems built to fight it, and the mixed mechanical reality of the circular flow that we all literally live inside of every day. I want to leave you with this one thought. Which parts of this circular flow are you going to interact with today? Seriously, when you buy your lunch, when you pay a tax, when you finally get that paycheck, how is your participation keeping this machine running? Every single transaction you make is a gear turning in this incredible system. Thanks for tuning into this explainer, and I really hope you never look at a simple purchase the exact same way ever again.